Chapter 24, Danger Ahead. Author's note: sorry this is a little short, but here you go. Oh yeah, and I might have made a small mistake in the last chapter. I wrote Harry's last ever first-year exam as year-end examinations. My bad, I forgot about the different time period of learning in Britain and my country. Questions answers, sleeping in the shadows. Ooh, yes, I am definitely interested, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I am not sure how a beta works, so what do you want the arrangement to be like? And you are right, English is my third language. Shocking, ain't it? Giggle. Zevim. Ah, okay, point noted. I see what you mean, I will definitely rectify that. Do not misunderstand, they are definitely still best friends though. Quirrell. Well, still alive, living at Hogwarts, enjoying life. Nightaloon do not play such an important role yet at the moment. His role is more prominent in the sequels. Tongue. Hakuten Mage. Okay, I know, everyone keeps saying that. Besides, there is no slash warning here because there is no slash. D. I put it in the M category for the blood and gore. Chapter 24, Danger Ahead. The furious echoes of fast footsteps rang along the corridor of the Ministry of Magic as Professor Dumbledore strode along it with annoyance. He was sure the owl came from the Minister of Magic himself after all, why else would anyone else have summoned him? Yet, Minister Fudge had denied sending him any letter. It was puzzling. Unless a broken bar, the professor stopped in his tracks as a thought occurred to him. No, it cannot be. Could it? Suddenly, with renewed vigor, Professor half-ran half-walked to the nearest cubicle. The school is in danger. Meanwhile, back at the Forbidden Forest, Professor Quirrell winced as he drank the unicorn's silvery blood. It tasted of pure magic, of innocent life. Yet, as soon as the warm liquid slid down his throat, it left behind a horrible aftertaste, sickly bittersweet followed by the sour taste of something decaying. Yet, his master forced him on, and Professor Quirrell dare not stop for fear he angered his master. Yes, more. Professor Quirrell shuddered in fear to hear his master goading him on with pleasure. In his palm, the blood-red stone continued its steady glow as the man ingested more and more of the unicorn's blood. Enough, now is the time. At his master's command, Professor Quirrell stopped. Just like every single time, he rose up and backed away from the barely breathing mare. The unicorn, sensing its chance to escape, weakly struggled up. Standing unsteadily on its feet, the unicorn crashed through the undergrowth in hopes of escaping this hooded attacker. Left and right, the blood spilled out of its gaping wounds, but the unicorn pressed on. As soon as the unicorn's tail disappeared out of sight, Professor Quirrell lifted up the stone and whispered a spell. A beam of continuous red light shot out towards Unicorn's trail. This was followed by a painful whinny and then a crash of something falling in the bushes. The beam of red light retracted back towards the stone, but this time with a pale white mist at its end. The white mist was soon trapped in the stone and the blood-red coloration turned an ominous black. Now, on to the next phase. Harry bid Oliver good night and trotted down the stairs back to the common room. Upon reaching there, he was pleased to see Hermione and Ron there, the former with her head buried in another book, reading furiously while Ron looked like he was about to pass out from sheer boredom. Holding his copy of potions, Harry sat down beside the duel and gave a small greeting. Hermione whipped her head up and smiled with a nod before turning her attention back to her book. Ron, on the other hand, looked like his savior has arrived and immediately initiated a conversation with Harry. Just as the two boys were chattering quickly, Harry heard Madara's frantic whispering. Turning around in surprise, he saw the snake's head popping out from near the Gryffindor entrance. The snake beckoned to him frantically. Now really puzzled, Harry excused himself, saying he needed the bathroom, and went towards the snake. Behind him, Ron slumped back on top of his cushion, looking bored once again. What's wrong? I saw Hermione hurting a unicorn in the Forbidden Forest. What? Are you sure? Harry gasped. Yes, it was freaky. He had this weird redstone thing and he did something to the unicorn. I don't know what, but whatever it is, the unicorn was hurting. Harry pondered a little while as he listened to the snake narrated his story. What do we do? Asked the poor snake. Harry glanced up at it in surprise. The snake bristled in frustration. Surely you are not thinking about ignoring this? That unicorn was dying out there. Suddenly Harry was struck by a brainwave. Hagrid. He smiled happily. The half-giant. Madara snorted. Yes, he is the groundskeeper. He will know what to do. The snake looked at the boy doubtfully. Finally, He sighed. It is not like they have much choice. Seeing Harry stood up from his kneeling position, the snake hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" The boy turned around and grinned, getting Hermione and Ron. "I do not think they will let me out alone." Chapter 25. First Confrontation. Questions and Answers. Poison and Sugar. The drafts for the sequels are all done. It is just remembering to write it all out now. Dark Serpent Cat. No spoilers. You have to wait. Chapter 25. First Confrontation. Tell me again why we are stumbling through the Forbidden Forest in the dead of the night? Hissed Hermione in anger. The three Gryffindors were out in the forest, stumbling over roots and ducking under branches that reached for them. Over them was Harry's invisibility cloak, shrouding them from the sight of any unwanted creatures. "Irma broken bar because I left something in Hagrid's hut?" replied Harry uncertainly. "Again, why are we in the forest then?" "It is forbidden for a reason." A pissed off Hermione glared at Harry as Ron swore beside him. Both Ron and Hermione stopped. They trained hardened looks on Harry, who twitched uncomfortably. Just as Harry was thinking of a reply, there was a crash. The noise seemed to reverberate through the eerily silent forest. "What was that?" Harry exclaimed. Before the other two can say anything, Harry had hurried off towards the noise, slipping out from under the protection of the cloak. "Harry, way I a broken bar." "Mvga broken bar." Ron swiftly placed his hand over Hermione's mouth, shaking his head silently at her. "We don't want to attract any attention," he whispered. Nodding, Hermione then followed Harry with Ron behind her. Harry could hear the sound of something thrashing in the bushes. Trying to tread as lightly as possible, he ran through the forest. Under the dim moonlight, it was a miracle he had not twisted an ankle or something rushing through the uneven forest floor. Madara, sensing his urgency, had slipped out of Harry's robe, reducing his weight that was holding Harry down. The snake had originally been hiding under his shirt, wrapped around Harry's torso. The snake proceeded to slither through the undergrowth alongside Harry, trying to stay out of Hermione's and Ron's sight. Madara suddenly smelt something odd in the air during his haste. Because of that, he veered slightly off to the left and headed in that direction. A sudden yell of pain had only hastened Harry's urgency. Behind him, he can hear Ron and Hermione thrashing through the undergrowth, both of them still under the invisibility cloak. Suddenly, Harry burst through the undergrowth and ended up in a small clearing in the middle of the forest. The sudden brightness of the full moon made Harry squint. In the middle of the clearing was a cloaked figure hunched over, clutching something that was glowing a harsh red. There was a red mist that was traveling up the person's arm, and Harry can hear the person panting in pain as the red mist seemed to be absorbed into his skin. Harry's sudden arrival startled the dark figure, and he glanced up. Underneath the hood, eyes widen as he recognized the student panting in front of him. "Harry Potter?" the cloaked figure hissed out in a low raspy voice. Harry furrowed his brow in confusion and took a step back in alarmed. "Do I know you?" "Yes, of course you do." The cloaked figure released a dark chuckle. "In fact, I have been waiting for this day for 11 years. This time, Harry was really confused. 11 years? Who did I know 11 years ago? Harry was starting to get really nervous by now. Then Hagrid's voice echoed in his head. "You survived his killing curse, Harry a broken bar. They said he is still alive, bidding his time to return a broken bar." Harry knew it. He was in big trouble. "You are Voldemort, aren't you?" the boy asked cautiously. "How dare you call my master by name, boy?" the cloaked figure roared, whipping his hood off to glare at Harry. In shock, Harry stared at the also-familiar turban on the man's head. "Professor Quirrell?" "But how?" "Wait, where's Snape?" Harry shouted before looking around wildly, expecting his potions professor to pop out from behind a tree. Professor Quirrell let loose a evil laugh. "Of course you would suspect that meddlesome greasy-haired bat. Everyone does. To think that all this time he was trying to protect you, and yet he still ended up as the suspect." With that, the man fell into another helpless fit of evil chuckling. "What?" Harry gasped weakly. "All this time, it was you?" The professor glared hotly at him. "Of course, you brat." "Then again, I played my cards well. No one ever suspected I was after the Pharaoh's ruby." Seeing Harry looking as confused as ever, the professor growled. "This is the savior, the boy who lived? Look at you, pathetic. You do not even know what is going on." You. Whipping the red gem upwards, the professor trusted the stone in front of him. The Pharaoh's ruby is a mystical stone of immense power. It is used to trap souls of assassins that threatened the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. At the same time, their souls could be used to reanimate objects. thus forcing those souls into a life of slavery and unwavering loyalty to the wielder of the gem. Of course, you don't know that, do you, boy? The professor leered at Harry. However, my master found another use for this gem actually. Instead of using the soul to reanimate an object, the soul could be drained to power another soul, to create a temporary functioning body, the soul that my master had been reduced to thanks to you. At that, Professor Quirrell stopped and glanced skyward. Harry heard the man mumbling to himself, but Master Broken Bar, you sure a broken bar strong and not a broken bar. Meanwhile, Harry was trying to inch away. He hoped Ron and Hermione had been smart enough to run away. He hoped they have gone to get help, because that crazy glint in his professor's eyes was giving him the chills. Too late. The professor whipped out his wand and let loose a flurry of sparks that scared Harry. The man then reached up to his turban and slowly unwrapping it. Once again, the decaying, rotting smell grew stronger and stronger. Harry felt like he was going to puke. It was kind of gross. Under the bright moonlight, Harry realized his professor was bald. Then, he turned around and the poor boy had to suppress a scream of terror. Etched onto the back of his professor's head was a face. There were wrinkles along the top and an indentation where a nose should have been. The face had glowing red eyes that were squinting at Harry. There was also a thin line that was shaped into a leer, and then, the face spoke. Harry Potter. Harry shuddered. The voice was deep and raspy. It sounded hoarse and raspy, from lack of use, and reminded him of the zombies he used to see on the television programs Dudley watched at home. After so long, we finally meet again. Look what you have reduced me to, a face on another's body. You will pay for what you have done, Harry Potter. Tonight, I will end it all. Make no mistake, the face hissed angrily at Harry. Without a doubt, Harry knew this was Voldemort. Somehow, he was alive after all. Before Harry could respond, Professor Quirrell lifted the red gem once again. A blood-red glow lit the clearing and a painful scream resonated through the area. Squinting his eyes, Harry saw gashes opening along the man's arm. Yet, the scream was not from the professor. It was higher in pitch, the same scream Harry heard while running through the forest. It sounded like it was coming from the stone itself. The face on the professor's head suddenly seemed to dissolve downwards. At the same time, blood seemed to flow from Professor Quirrell's arm and swirled beside him. From the stone, a white mist leaked out. The mist seemed to be struggling. As soon as it came in contact with the professor's blood, it was stained red and started to coagulate beside the professor. As the mixture of blood and mist swirled in spirals, it started to take on shape. Limbs were starting to form and the body of a man could be vaguely been seen. During this time, a beam of red magic can be seen connecting to the mist figure to the glowing blood-red gem. No, Harry shouted. Fear gripped his heart. He could not let the dark wizard of all time be resurrected once again. He stepped forward. Professor Quirrell whipped around and shot a beam of red light. It missed Harry by inches, hitting the tree behind Harry. The sound of splintering wood can be heard as Harry flinched from almost being hit. Harry quickly whipped out his own wand, but he was at a loss to what to do. This was magic far beyond his letter. He shouted the first spell that came to mind. Petrificus Totalis. A jet of white flew out of his wand towards the professor. Professor Quirrell flicked his wand and the spell was easily deflected. With a loud laugh, he taunted Harry. Foolish child, do you think your petty tricks can stop me? I have enough games. Time to end this. With a wide slashing motion, the man drew his wand backwards and with a loud arch, started the words to a new spell. New. There was a horrified scream and suddenly, a rock as large as a bludger smashed into Professor Quirrell's hand, making him release a cry of pain. His wand fell to the side and the spell aimed for Harry was interrupted. Harry sighed in relief before whipping his head sideways. What? The injured professor hissed out, cradling his injured hand. To the side was Ron and Hermione, the protection of the invisibility cloak gone. Both of them were ashen and Ron particularly was trembling while Hermione was staring at them wide frightened eyes. Both Gryffindor had their wands out, pointing at Professor Quirrell. Beside the duo was another similar rock, levitating in the air. The rock was trembling violently in the air as Ron tried to steady his trembling hand. The sight was actually quite comical if only they were not in such a precarious situation. Flagra Ignis, Hermione screamed in desperation. A jet of blue flames flew out of her wand and enveloped the professor and the red mist figure in rings of blue fire. Ron swung his wand. This time the rock flew towards the red mist figure. Sadly, The rock just passed through, temporarily disrupting the mist and hit Professor Quirrell on the shoulder. This time, the professor stumbled backwards. Harry, seeing his chance, sent out a tripping hex at the professor. At the same time, the cries of Wingardium Leviosa by Ron could be heard as he levitated another rock in the clearing. The man fell, and along with him, the red gem that was in his arm. By now, the red mist had solidified into the outline of a man. The face that was originally on the professor's head had now appeared on the figure. With a harsh growl, the mist figure spoke. "Imbecile brats. Looks like you brought some friends, Potter. Well, that will never do. Say goodbye to your friends, Potter." Stretching his hand out, the fallen professor's wand flew into the red mist figure's hand. With a swift flick, the blue flames surrounding him were dispelled. Next, with a swift flash in their direction, blue sparks flew out of the wand and towards Ron and Hermione. Ron, Hermione, no. Harry could only watch in horror as the sparks struck the ground and trees below and above the Gryffindors. There was an extremely loud bang, a sickening crunch, and the sound of splintering wood, all at the same time. It was joined by the sound of Hermione's terrified scream and Ron's fearful yell. Dust spewed out of the ground, and the next minute, broken foliage came raining down on the spot where the two students had been standing. No, Harry felt tears sprang to his eyes. The dust cleared slightly, and all he could see were broken branches and dirt that have been blown up. No sight of his two friends. He tried to run towards them. The red figure gave an evil glint. "Not likely, Potter." Another swished in Harry's direction. This time, a yellow beam of light streaked forwards. Before Harry could even dodge the spell, it hit. Crack!